Consumers are now using some of the most advanced technology in the world to, in real time, compare your pricing versus competitors. They can very simply, even if it's not comparing price on a single item, they can ask a simple question: who has a better price, retailer A or retailer B? This is critical. Consumers have the best tools possible to shop you in real time. You cannot afford to have a worse price position on the items consumers care most about. You need to come to battle armed with the best analytics, the best solutions, the best AI to ensure that you're always offering competitive, really good prices in the market for consumers.
Welcome to Retail Remix. In this era of tariff fluctuations, rising costs, and value-hungry shoppers, the perfect price has never been harder to find. Retailers are at a crossroads. Adapt to consumers' AI-powered deal hunting with their own AI-powered price optimization, or risk getting left out of the mix altogether. But consumers are understandably wary of these tools. So how do brands harness the power of pricing algorithms without losing the trust of their customers? Today, we're going to dig into that with Revionics Matt Pavich. We'll strip away the hype to explore how AI-driven pricing actually works and what guardrails are needed to ensure it's a win-win for businesses and customers. Welcome back to Retail Remix. I'm your host, Nicole Silberstein, Editor-in-Chief at Retail Touchpoints, and today we are sitting down with Matt Pavich, Senior Director of Strategy and Innovation at Revionics. Matt, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
So now, before we dive into all things AI pricing, tell us just a little bit about your background in retail and retail pricing.
Yeah, I literally grew up in retail. My parents owned a convenience store. I grew up actually managing that, and then have done just about everything from stocking shelves when I was a college student to managing a gourmet retailer for food for a while. And then later in my career, working for Target as a buyer and several strategic support roles for the merchandising organization. And then I've been at Revionics, the company I'm currently at, for over 13 years, helping some of the best retailers in the world with their pricing strategies, whether it's base pricing, promo, markdown, or just trying to figure out how to offer better value to their customers through the entire life cycle of their products. So,
does your parents' convenience store still exist?
No, actually, it's an interesting retail story. I believe the first Walgreens in the state of Michigan bought their property. And then, so they sold it, and now they're doing something different these days. So, yeah.
That's fun. And you also don't have the burden of kind of having the family business foisted on you. You are now able to do all of this highfalutin pricing stuff, which is complicated. And that's why we have you here today. So, applying AI to retail pricing isn't new, but the adoption is surging as AI applications across the world are. What would you say, though, was the tipping point that turned AI from a luxury to a necessity for retail pricing teams?
Yeah, so as you pointed out, people have been using AI pricing solutions for a while. Revionics was founded over 20 years ago, and we were actually the first company to introduce AI ML pricing into the algorithm where you would send weekly data, the system would get smarter, or it would learn from what happened last week and offer better pricing recommendations with more informed information than the week before. So people have been definitely gaining value for a while. I think the real things that have changed the industry and the competitive landscape on this front have been the past 5 or 6 years, right? We've seen so much disruption. I don't want to say smooth sailing up until COVID, but COVID was obviously a massive disruption. And it set off a chain of events running from, COVID to, some of the supply chain challenges from Suez. And then we had inflation. And then, going straight from inflation, we've had tariffs. And then now we've had conflict thrown into that. So I think, it's been this never-ending cycle of disruption. And also we've seen as retailers are trying to adapt to all of this and all of these changes and all of these rapid cost increases, they're seeing their competitors are investing in technology faster than ever before. Especially on the AI front, obviously, about 3 years ago, the big global, ChatGPT phenomenon where everyone started thinking about AI again, kind of opened up another door on that front, and people started to reconsider their AI investments as well. So I think we've just seen dramatic acceleration, and really AI has solved problems. It's getting smarter. It's getting better. More competitors are using it. it's a must have in today's world if you're a sophisticated retailer trying to win share, trying to beat your competitors, because there's a pretty good chance one of them or multiple ones of them are using sophisticated pricing solutions, and you just can't afford to not.
Right, right. I mean, so much of that never ending disruption that you very succinctly summarized has directly impacted the price of goods. How much of the use of AI for pricing today, though, would you say is reactive versus proactive? And what should that mix be ideally? I mean, we've seen a lot in the past year of just a lot of reaction to things like tariffs. How is that balancing out between like proactive behaviors that retailers can take?
Yeah, I think it varies across the industry. I would say the best practice is to have a higher percentage be proactive than reactive. I think traditional retail is very reactive, right? You keep your price on the shelf and then, oh no, I got a cost increase. Now I have to raise it. Or, oh no, Walmart took their price down. I have to react. So I think reactive is the natural comfort zone and the area that a lot of retailers played in for decades and still play in for a lot of their products. But I think with the best analytics and the best optimization solutions and AI solutions, I think the healthier mix is definitely more proactive. I think you still need to be reactive. You have to evolve as market trends change, as products become less elastic, as competitors move up or down, as cost changes come through. But it's also important to get in front of your strategies and really understand what are the items my customers care most about? How can I lower prices on them proactively? Have the analytics understand where you can have a great price position without your competitors necessarily following you. Having the simulation tools and the analytics to really understand if I were to take prices today, despite there being no event causing it, how can I offer better value to my customers on the items I care most about based on the data we have, while also keeping my margin whole, or actually in a lot of cases with the best optimizations you can find, unit gains, revenue gains, lower price position in the market or better price position in the market, and margin gains at the same time. So it's really about having great processes in place to set up events where you can proactively price while also being able to react at the fastest speed possible to meet market conditions as they evolve and change around you.
How important is integrating your inventory data into the pricing algorithms to be able to do all that stuff you just listed?
It's very important understanding your inventory position, particularly when you're thinking about things like markdown. It's very hard to have the exact right price in the store if you don't know how many units you're trying to clear out. And it's very critical to understand that inventory position, but it also helps from a promo perspective and from a regular pricing perspective, right? If you're sitting on a ton of inventory, it really makes sense to maybe run your promo a little bit deeper or take a little bit lower everyday price until you run through some of that inventory. If you're sitting on a very tight inventory, most consumers would rather see that product on the shelf, even if it's a little higher price. You know, we saw this with there was a shortage of things like sriracha sauce maybe 4 years ago, right? So maybe that was an opportunity. You know, it's not nice to raise prices, but it's better than having the last couple of units fly off the shelf. So I think it's important to understand and always balance that supply and demand, but always think about your customers, which items are most important to them. And then ideally, the pricing and the demand should lead and the supply should follow. You should have a good supply on the products your customers care most about, but pricing is the fastest lever you can pull to adjust if your supply can't keep up, or you're just in trouble from an inventory perspective in one direction or another.
So, of course, the reason that we're talking about a lot of this right now is because of the increasing use among consumers of AI answer engines like ChatGPT or Gemini as kind of personal shopping assistants to find the best deals. How are you seeing the rise of that behavior on the consumer side change the stakes for retailers with their pricing strategy?
Yeah, it's absolutely changed the stakes. So I think the stat that every retailer should know is that this past holiday season, there was an 805% increase in customers using AI to shop products online and compare prices online. So if you think about it from that perspective, consumers are now using some of the most advanced technology in the world to, in real time, compare your pricing versus competitors. They can very simply, even if it's not comparing price on a single item, they can ask a simple question: who has a better price, retailer A or retailer B? The AI can actually come out with some answers. You know, I've demonstrated this to some retailers who maybe thought their price perception was a little better than they thought, right? So I think this is critical. Consumers have the best tools possible to shop you in real time. You cannot afford to have a worse price position on the items consumers care most about. So if consumers have the best tools and your competition are adopting the top tools, you need to come to battle armed with the best analytics, the best solutions, the best AI to ensure that you're always offering competitive, really good prices in the market for consumers, because right now they're hurting. We just got that recent CPI report.
Yeah.
Inflation's continuing to rise. It remains to be seen that the massive impact from fuel increases and fertilizer increases aren't even going to hit for a while. So I think retailers who are going to win tomorrow are really putting every effort in place to win today from a price perception perspective.
Okay, now something has legs when Ronan Farrow starts talking about it. So before we go any further, I really want to address the elephant in the room, which is the wave of negative press we've been seeing lately around surveillance pricing or dynamic pricing. These have become scary terms to consumers, but what do they actually mean? And where do you think the line is between optimization, like you've been talking about, things that retailers have to do, and exploitation, what consumers are scared of?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And since you introduced elephants, I'm actually going to turn this into a pachyderm party and say
Okay.
that surveillance pricing and dynamic pricing are actually two different concepts. So two elephants. And that's critical because the way we describe things really matter in this case. So let me start with the surveillance pricing, and that is how you gather data. How are you finding out what products your customers want the most? And then dynamic pricing is, of course, the frequency and the processes and speed by which you can change prices. If your competitor moves, can you match them within 15 minutes? Do you have electronic shelf labels, et cetera? And I think these are both critical to examine based on the question that you offered, because consumers are rightfully concerned that they're being taken advantage of. So I think it's important to address them one at a time. So starting with surveillance pricing, there are two primary ways that you can gather data to make pricing decisions as a retailer or using a pricing solution, right? You can use actual surveillance, which is taking personal information about shoppers. So hey, this is information I know about Matt or Nicole, and I'm going to charge them or treat them differently. And I think most consumers are rightfully concerned about that, right? They don't want to have us, living in the same zip code and, they charge me a lot less than you for the same product. That's viewed as unfair, right? There's a second approach, which is more of a democracy-based approach, which is customers vote every time they shop in a store or on a channel, whether it's online, whether it's in a store. And all of that information is combined together and tallied to understand which products are most important in this store. It's not taking people's personal information, but it's really understanding at that level, that lowest level for this store, for this website, for this group of stores, what products are most important to consumers based on what they have told us, based on how they have voted with their purchasing behavior. And that's the approach that consumers are okay with.
So more like an aggregated data set as opposed to looking.
It's essentially every single day or week, these retailers are conducting an election and then sending the results to the pricing solution and say, look, this is what was voted for. This item's most important for this store. Therefore, help me price optimization solution, find the lowest price on this item because this is what consumers really care about. Without the creepiness of we're going to take Matt's personal shopping behavior or Nicole's personal shopping behavior, or we're not going to offer different prices for two people who shop the same store or live in the same area or sitting on the same couch looking at their phone and finding different price points for the same store, right? So there's a big difference there. And I think when done right, you really listening to the customer. You're giving them a voice every time they make a purchase or choose not to make a purchase. And you're really offering value on the items that they care the most about. And you're doing it in a fair way at that store level where you're not charging different individuals differently.
Yeah.
Now, dynamic pricing, if I can shift to that, is simply critical for making sure that retailers can be competitive. I mentioned that 805% increase in shoppers comparing prices. The best, most winning retailers are using dynamic pricing primarily today to match competition moving down on prices. It's a tool used to remain competitive in the market, and it mostly leads to price decreases. And it's essentially critical for a retailer because of the things we talked about for them, if a top competitor is moving down on a product that you know is super important to your customer, to match them in real time. And that's what dynamic pricing enables you to do. Now, dynamic varies by retailer. For some, dynamic pricing can mean change prices every 15 minutes. We have electronic shelf labels. For other retailers, it can mean just pricing twice a week instead of once a month, right? But I think the main point here is that in retail, you don't need to move fast if you're trying to increase prices or increase your profit, right? You can take time, you can evaluate it, you can run simulations, you can figure out the exact best way to raise prices if that is your objective. You are not being compared in real time by consumers for your margin. They can't see your margin. They don't know if your costs went up. They don't know if you just received a massive cost increase due to tariffs or due to some other issue, right? But they can very easily in real time see if your pricing is too high versus your competition and choose your competitor over you. So the need to move fast applies for price decreases. It applies for your competitive position. And on balance, if you look at the retailers who are adopting these practices, they are known for having the best prices in the market, for actually bringing prices down in the market and not raising prices as much during periods like peak inflation or the tariff period we went through and are still going through. So dynamic pricing has been a net good for consumers. One other point on this I think is important that consumers realize, because dynamic pricing has led to price increases in other industries, is that retail, particularly when we talk about fast-moving consumer goods, offers endless opportunities for consumers to shop. So if you're a retailer and you decide to take your prices up, and the retailer next to you decides to take their prices up, right? There's still endless options. There's the bodega down the street. There's a convenience store down the street, right? If you choose to take the price up on Coca-Cola, consumers have endless options where to find it at a lower price. So you're just shooting yourself and hurting your own sales, hurting your own market share if you're choosing to move dynamically and price yourself out of the market. So ideally, retailers are using dynamic pricing to keep prices low for consumers. And that's what we've seen in large.
I think that's also good to know, too, about the sense of urgency. I think it's kind of hard today not to feel like everything needed to happen yesterday. And so that distinction of like, yes, decreases, you need to keep up, but increases, you can take your time and really consider the data set. Also, just going back again then to the surveillance pricing piece of this. And thank you for making the distinction, because I do think surveillance and dynamic pricing get used kind of synonymously right now. But on the surveillance pricing side, so the information that you're using to determine what kind of price shifts to make. I mean, of course, consumers don't like this. Nobody wants to feel, like you said, that something is unfair, that they're paying more than the person next to them. On the flip side of that, it also feels bad as a business to undersell yourself and potentially have left money on the table, to realize that maybe you could have sold something for a little bit more. So how can retailers, avoid individualized pricing at the level you were talking about, but still make sure that they're setting prices that resonate with consumers, but meet their business needs and help them not leave money on the table?
Yeah, there's a ton of ways to offer value. So we often think of it in just having the lowest price on a specific item. You can also offer value by really investing in your private label pricing and making sure they have a great private label assortment, which doesn't just enable you to offer lower prices in the market, but also gives you more leverage when negotiating with your national brand vendors to possibly get more funds to then have deeper promotions to, again, offer more value in the market. It also is things like offering volume discounts. Or, one of the things where there's a lot of opportunity being missed is on promotional offers. A lot of retailers take the promotions their vendors tell them to run, but not the promotions their consumers tell them to run, right? So if you think about the clear distinction there, there's a lot of, I'm going to run this product because whatever vendor said to do it, because I did it last year and I did the year before, and it's comfortable for me. I love to forecast it. It's easy. I know exactly what's going to happen. That might not be the best promotion. And if you listen to your consumers and really have the right analytics and optimization capabilities in place, you can say, well, no, I'm not going to run this promotion. I'm going to run one they care more about and go even deeper on it and really offer value through that as well. There's a lot of opportunities to offer value. And the best retailers are using advanced analytics to really look at all of these facets, ranging from trade up discounts to volume discounts to quantity purchase discounts to what are my promotions to how can I even offer value during the markdown phase earlier when there's still demand to give people, the products they really care about. It always starts with the customer. You have to listen to them. You have to look at what they're telling you with their purchasing behavior. Again, not with their personal information, but with what they're voting for, with their purchasing decisions, and then giving them what they want and making sure that you're running the analytics to understand, if it's good for your business, how it will help the consumer, how it will help you. And oftentimes it even helps the vendor drive more units, and it's a better allocation of their funds as well.
It's kind of ironic, though, because while personalized pricing seems to be taboo, personalized promotions are generally accepted, sometimes like even welcomed by consumers. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a fundamental difference between a promotion, which is something that's special and unique, and they can message specifically to an individual, whereas everyday price is a matter of fairness, right? You're charging Matt less or more than you're charging Nicole for this item, but you can actually follow analytics, and customers have shown overwhelmingly in surveys. We've seen anywhere from 50 to 80% in different surveys we've looked at where customers have said, yes, I do want personalized promotions. And it does make sense. People like to get a coupon for the things that they like to buy. People like to get loyalty discounts. It's something that's generally accepted in society, and it makes sense. It's a way to reward your most loyal customers. It's a way to say, we're listening to you, we appreciate you, we want to give you value on the things you care most about, but we're going to draw the line on fairness. We're going to promote the things you care about, but we're still going to make sure that we offer the same price to you as the other person walking in off the street. And we're not going to discriminate against anyone. And we're going to use all the tools in our toolkit to make sure that we have fair pricing on an everyday level. And then just offer these little delightful things to customers, through the promo process.
Yeah. I mean, you've made a very good case that bringing AI into pricing strategies is really an imperative today for retailers. But help us break down a little bit kind of the optimal approach, especially for retailers that maybe are just starting on this journey. What should they be considering? What kind of guardrails should they be putting in place?
I think the important thing about the AI journey is a company, for instance, like Revionics, my company, we can meet you wherever you're at on your journey. Same goes probably for some other AI providers, right? The goal is to just improve it a little bit and make sure that you're moving in the right direction. So, is it starting with the analytics to understand which items are most important to your customers? Is it starting with moving slightly off of the heavily rules-based strategy that says, I will exactly match Walmart on these items to, okay, I might trust the AI to maybe price a little lower than Walmart on these items, but a little higher than Walmart on these items, right? But I think the real key is, to your point, the guardrails, right? Setting those guardrails to really enforce the rules that are important. So you're not taking prices up more than X percent when you're taking a price change, or you're not taking prices up on women's razor blades without considering doing the same for men's razor blades, right? So you're not, disenfranchising any of your individual customers. And the best pricing solutions have all of these guardrails that you can put in place, so you're not running into a situation where, people are worried the AI is going to go crazy off the rails, right? You can create very narrow areas where the AI can try to find pricing. And you can set up AI to say, I want to be priced exactly between 2% and 5% of a top competitor, right? And it can find the right price within that very narrow rail, right? And it won't go above, it won't go below. So I think it's important as an organization to understand how to set up these guardrails, to trust in them, to find the results. But ultimately, AI is going to help you better listen to your customer and offer better prices for your customers on the items they care most about. And it's really hard to find that balance of market share growth, volume growth, and margin and profit growth without using a sophisticated tool like this that can really identify which items to keep low and which items to keep high, how to treat them differently, and how to really manage it as things change. And maybe a product that isn't important today might become important tomorrow, and vice versa.
So if you would take out your crystal ball for me and tell me kind of what you foresee maybe 5 years down the line, that feels like it will feel like a long period of time given how fast things are moving. Do you think 5 years from now, the static price tag will still even exist, or will every price be the result of a real-time AI calculation happening behind the scenes?
I think the static price tag will still exist. Retail is one of the fastest moving industries and one of the slowest moving industries. And there will always be laggards and there will always be innovators. I will say that amongst major tier one retailers, the big boxes, we are seeing a massive shift today to electronic shelf labels, to faster, more dynamic pricing. And I think that it is a competitive imperative to move in that direction. It's just a win on so many fronts to move away from that static price tag to something more dynamic that enables you to price more in real time against your competitors. Now, having said that, there's still guardrails and consumers still expect certain things. If you go into a convenience store and buy the same lunch every day, you'd be pretty mad if that price moves up and down a lot, right? It's still a science and an art. So it's all about setting the guardrails and setting up the processes, technology, and the AI to move as fast and as efficiently as possible while still really understanding who your core consumer is and offering them value on what they care the most about in a way that removes a lot of inefficiencies of labor, changing store tags. And, it takes 2 weeks to approve something at headquarters before it even goes there. And maybe there's no compliance. Maybe the store is only able to do 70% of those price changes or not able to prioritize which price changes are most important. So it's about removing all of those efficiency barriers. And that's one area where Gen AI has even helped, where it can make headquarters processes move a lot faster, where you can, using real simple conversational analytics, get really great pricing insights. Asking a simple question, you get the simple answer, and then you can run a forecast on it and say, yeah, proceed. I want to do that. So it's amazing where the technology is going. And long story short, it's evolving. You've got to evolve with it. The top competitors who are winning in the market are. So trust me, you don't want to be a laggard on this front. Your merchant is not going to outmath the system, and they're not going to be able to keep up with what consumers really want in their head in an Excel spreadsheet.
All right. Now, before we let you go, I have a few final, more lighthearted kind of questions. I actually don't know if this next question is a matter of opinion, or maybe you have facts at your disposal, but I was curious, what is the most price sensitive item in a grocery store, either that you know from research or in your opinion, milk, eggs, or coffee?
Depends on the retailer. So that's why you got to listen to the data. I mean, if you think about it, in some stores, it's milk. In other stores, it might be coffee. You really got to listen to your customers. And that's why it's important to see what they're saying with what they vote with.
What is it for you? Which one are you most sensitive to price-wise?
Oh, for me, it's coffee. I'm a shameful. I drink several cups a day. It's already up over 20% in the past 12 months. So that's a little worrisome. And, that's the one item, if I'm out of at 11 at night, that I will get up and go to that store and buy, because I cannot wake up without coffee in my house.
And you'll probably pay the higher price, but you'll notice that the price has gone up.
Yeah, so that actually makes me kind of inelastic at 11 at night, but very elastic when I'm buying it in bulk. So.
Yeah. So now, as we discussed, it's been a stressful time in retail and in the world. What's your favorite way to decompress?
I just love hanging out with my family, and I have a dog, a Cavapoo that, she hangs out with me.
Wait, what's a Cavapoo?
It's a mix between a Cavalier and a Poodle, and it's just the sweetest.
I'm going to have to look this up.
Yeah. No, so she's great. So I just like chilling, relaxing, reading a book with her on my lap, or going for a walk. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to do. Yeah.
But unplug from the internet seems to be key.
Got to go for those walks and keep your mind, free from some things and, just think and stuff. So
yeah. You didn't mention travel, but I know that you have lived in many different places. You mentioned that you travel quite a bit. What is the most interesting place that you've either lived or visited?
I've been to a lot of great places. If I had to pick one, South Africa is amazing. It really has everything. If you like safari, you like good wine, you like great, beautiful landscapes, great culture, very diverse people who are very open and welcoming and kind. And so, yeah, it's a fantastic place. If you ever get a chance to visit it, I highly recommend it. So
you've traveled so much. I wonder, is there any place you haven't traveled to that you'd really like to?
Oh, tons of places. I still, oddly enough, haven't been to Japan. Would love to go there.
The retail scene in Japan is so fascinating too. That feels like it has to be at the top of your list.
Yeah, especially when you get into some of the tech trends and things like that. So huge miss. I've been to South Korea. Loved that very much. So yeah, I'm never going to turn down a great international trip. I found, the world's full of amazing people and amazing places, great retailers too. We have fantastic retail customers in every corner of the world. I just came back from visiting one in Morocco. Fantastic people, fantastic company, beautiful city of Casablanca. So yeah, it's a great world to visit, Yeah.
You certainly make your job sound dreamy. What would you say is the most underrated skill for a retail executive today?
I would say curiosity, and I'm a little biased. I would say that's my primary trait myself, but I think you need to always be asking questions and really trying to understand, how can I make things better? What things are working? What things are not working? What are my customers saying? And I believe that if you're always curious, you're always going to continue to educate yourself, continue to evolve. You're going to hear more opinions from others. You're going to learn. You're going to absorb. You're going to run those simulations that could, find you some financial benefit if you're, trying to do that as a retail executive. But I think, keeping your mind open can really help, especially, look at the last 5 years, right? What crystal ball could have predicted, 2020 and beyond. So you have to really be open to change and adoption of new things, and really having a curious mind can help with that.
Yeah. Well, I think my big takeaway from our conversation today is really that retailers' edge in 2026 isn't really just about having the lowest price. It's going to be really about agility to that point. And to be agile, you kind of have to be curious about what's happening out there and what the impacts could be. So thank you, Matt, for being here and breaking it all down for us today.
Yeah, I love being here. Thank you, Nicole.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. Hop over to the Retail Touchpoints page on LinkedIn to join the conversation. Let us know about your own experiences, both professionally and personally, with AI-powered pricing, and tell us what topics you'd like us to tackle in future episodes. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you all soon. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Retail Remix. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. Until next time, keep mixing it up.